I stopped partying in college.
Here's why.
So I wasn't always like this. In my freshman year, I used to go out every weekend, sometimes even multiple times a weekend. But now, after my junior year, I've kind of grown out of that, and this is my story. And this story starts off in high school, and the theme of my high school experience is that I was sheltered. And maybe this is something that you guys can relate to. I feel like I grew up kind of in a bubble. Where I'm from, everyone is in the upper middle class. My town is maybe a quarter to 40% Asian. And in high school, you know, all the Asian kids are grinders, and this made it kind of a toxic environment for me because from the start of high school all the way up until the middle of my senior year of high school, I was constantly stressing about how strong my college application resume was. And this is relevant because I was so focused on how good I was looking to these colleges that I wasn't really focusing on other aspects of my life like social things. While I did hang out with my friends occasionally, I didn't really smoke, drink, or party or do things that I feel like encompass a full high school experience. But once high school finished, that stress went away and I was really ready to let loose and party for the first time and really buy into the hype surrounding college and college parties at the time. And because I'd never really done it before, I had sky high expectations. But to be honest, who doesn't when there are videos like these? So back to the video, I had these grand expectations of what college parties were gonna be like. And I had gone to the University of Michigan a few times during my senior year and got to experience a couple parties and a little bit of what college life is like. And it was fun. And I thought that college was going to be like that nonstop. So when I ended up moving into college, I kind of just went with the flow. A lot of people around me were partying, so I just figured why not? And because it was still 2019, there were parties very often. Almost every single Friday and Saturday, there was a frat throwing some party. And oftentimes I pre-gamed with my friends and I went. And frat parties are sweaty, they're packed, but they can really be a lot of fun when you have the right people and the right music. I'm someone who can't really dance to a song unless I really know the lyrics by heart. And unfortunately, CMU can have some pretty funky music, but in my first semester, it was good. It was fun, it was novel, and I enjoyed it. These parties are something that I recommend everyone try at least a few times. If you're nervous about partying or going out, it may help to know that everyone is just out there trying to have a good time for themselves. Taking that same mindset when you're going out can be helpful. But by the time the second semester of my freshman year rolled around, things started to change a little bit. And it was somewhere in the middle of the semester where I started feeling like often when I went out, it was a little bit disappointing. And there were oftentimes weekends where I was excited to go out, but afterwards felt a little bit unfulfilled. But then it was around this time that COVID really started to ramp up and everyone got sent home for the rest of the semester. And I didn't really think about this again until my sophomore year. And what happened then was all the mosh pit type parties really went away from campus as these frats weren't technically allowed to throw anymore. And while there were more laid back parties, I decided not to participate. And as a result, I stayed in more during this year, but I did drink with friends occasionally and it was really fun when I did. So sophomore year was around the time where I was dealing with imposter syndrome. And if you're not familiar with what imposter syndrome is, it's basically just that I was feeling like the success that I had or the grades that I had or the internship that I got was undeserved. I also started having feelings that life was kind of meaningless. And the reason why I bring this up is because even though there were times where I went out and I drank and I had fun with my friends, at the end of the day, there was always still some point where I was alone and I had to deal with these feelings. So drinking and this fun really didn't prevent me from having to face my insecurities. And even though I wasn't going out to clubs and traditional parties, I didn't feel like I was missing out. If anything, there was stuff that I was gaining because I hated getting hungover, and because I wasn't drinking that much, I wasn't getting hungover very much. So I was gaining all of those lost mornings from being hungover and gaining lost sleep from going out. There was also some point during this year where I dropped the feeling of wanting validation so much from other people, and this might have contributed to me not going out as much because I didn't care as much if there were people going out and I was staying in. And junior year, which was this past year, was kind of similar to sophomore year, except that the COVID restrictions were lightening up a little bit. I went out about 3 or 4 times a semester, and when I did go out, again, it was pretty fun. But I feel like this year gave me a little bit more clarity into why I didn't want to go out more. And that's just because going out didn't feel like it was bringing any meaning into my life. And I really wasn't forming any deeper connections with the people that I was meeting or hanging out with at these parties. And it was also kind of a hassle because I was coming home a little drunk, a little tired, and a little hungover the next day. And now we're back to the present. And just to clear some things up, I don't hate going out. Most of the time, it's honestly pretty fun. Maybe part of the reason why I don't go out as much is because I go to Carnegie Mellon. I mean, we're kind of lame, and there are people who go out at any school, but in my opinion, it's a different vibe from a state school. school. Another thing is just that my close friends don't really go out that often. There's this saying that you are the average of your 5 closest friends, and I really do believe in that, and I think that if I had more friends that went out, then I'd go out more too. But at the same time, that saying could be backwards, and what I mean by that is that the person who goes out a lot and myself maybe don't have too much in common, and because of that, the people who are close to me are people who don't go out that often. I also want to say that I'm still figuring things out as I go, and part of me still wonders if I'm missing out by not going out as much. I feel like I've heard and read a lot of stuff about how college is kind of the best 4 years of your life, where you don't really have any responsibility, and it's the only time where you can really let loose and have fun like this. And I do think about that occasionally, but I also think that that's a stupid way to think. Because if I'm supposed to go through life thinking that my best years are behind me, I don't really want to live that life. So what my current conclusion now about going out is just that it's not quality time. My closest relationships in life were built from hours and hours and hours of one-on-one time, and that's more or less just the kind of person that I am. I don't really enjoy hanging out in big groups, and part of that's because I like putting all of my attention on one person, and in return having all of that person's attention. Going out as a result doesn't really fall into that category, and therefore isn't really one of my priorities. I hope this story of my experience gives you a little more insight into why I chose not to go out anymore. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.